I seem to say far too often that I don't like covering cases of under 18-year-olds. And that's true because I've got kids. However, this story does involve under 18-year-olds, but they're not the victims. This is the case of Kim Edwards and Lucas Markham. They are Britain's youngest convicted double murderers. Before we start, we've got some disclaimers. First of all, this is a true crime. It involves true people, and then people do have families. So please be sensitive about what you say. I do want you to share it, I do want you to comment, but please be sensitive. I'm putting this one out for information purposes only. It's not very often that we do solved cases, but I really wanted to get this. It grabbed my attention, so I'm just doing it for information purposes. And finally, in regards to disclaimers, I need to put out there, I do go into a bit of detail. I describe sounds and such, so if you're a bit squirmish or if you have that sort of nature that you don't want to listen, then it's probably best you don't listen. Kim Rose Edwards was born on the 13th of June 2001. She lived with her mom, Elizabeth, and her younger sister, Katie. They lived in Spalding in South Lincolnshire, England. Growing up, they never really had the picture-perfect family life. Their dad were abusive and they were a drug addict. And as a result of that, Elizabeth took the kids and they got away from that horrible environment. And because of that, they spent a lot of time in different women's refuges. And obviously, once they're away safe, it's not all plain sailing from there on. Elizabeth now has to raise both the children on her own. And going on from that, Kim had always seen herself as an outsider. And mum and sister had a really tight bond. And although Kim weren't always fighting with him, she just didn't seem to have that bond. She didn't feel like she was connected. She didn't feel like they loved her as much as they loved each other. And I'm not quite sure how true this bit is, but I did read that Katie were also a lot more popular than Kim at school. So that, all in all, with the mom and the popularity at school, there were quite a lot of sibling rivalry. In January 2008, when Kim was just 6 years old, she was complaining about the TV not working. Now, I read that they were in a caravan, but I couldn't quite find confirmation of that. Irregardless, she's complaining about this TV not working, and Elizabeth, the mom, hits Kim in the jaw. And Kim was just 6 years old. Now, the tabloids have really focused on that and made Kim out to be the world's worst parent. And obviously, she's never hit a child, but I do want to focus on not that much more stuff like that happens throughout this case. And that was when Kim was 6. The incident happened when Kim was 14. Either which way, when the argument de-escalated, Elizabeth took herself off to social services and reported herself. So obviously social services got involved straight away and they placed Kim and her younger sister Katie into foster care. The sisters spent quite a bit of time in foster care, a few months I think, and then eventually they were allowed to return home to the mom. And it's said that the relationship between Katie, the younger sister, and Elizabeth, the mom, were perfectly fine. Everything just went back to normal. However, not so much for Kim. They still remained at odds. There were still the little arguments coming from seemingly nowhere. The relationship was very much in turmoil. It was on edge. Then in September 2003, Kim threatened to run away and a teacher raised the alarm. Then in 2014, I didn't bother looking at what month, Kim went to social services and claimed that her mom strangled her. Social services got involved again, but it would drop pretty quickly because both Katie and her mom were saying it didn't happen. Then in January 2015, Elizabeth had had enough. She just wanted to have a good relationship with both her daughters, and she wanted both her daughters to be happy, as you naturally do. So she went off to some family counselling and tried to fix things. And it weren't long after that she'd found a suicide note written by Kim. So she very quickly went and scheduled an emergency psychiatric meeting. And not much happened from there on. She did get put on psychiatric hold, but she was assessed and they said that Kim had nothing wrong with her. She had no mental illnesses. We didn't really know what was going on. And at this point, Kim is absolutely convinced that her mom loves Katie more than she loves her. Enter Stan Lucas Markham. Yes, his real name is actually Stan Lucas Markham. Kim met Lucas at John Gleb High School when she was 14 years old. They'd both been assigned to a disciplinary class for aggressive students. Lucas was born on the 1st of August 2001. And again, he'd had a difficult childhood too. His parents' relationships were abusive and violent, And that ended up in a divorce, which then ended up in Lucas and his brothers not being cared for properly. Or at least an inability to care for him properly. They were put into care, and it weren't long after, I don't think, that their auntie adopted them. At this point, Lucas was just 4-year-old. The following year, when Lucas was 5, his mom died of leukemia. It was said that Lucas was bright. He was very good at math, he enjoyed math, but he had anger issues, and they were getting out of control, spiraling out of control, and they were really holding him back. And because of this, he found himself in constant conflicts, to the extent he was even having fist fights with teachers, or at least trying to. And as a result of this, he was assigned to a behavioural unit, and even there, he was struggling to fit in. In 2014, Lucas's former friend's dad had been murdered, and this friend said that Lucas were far too interested in the case, and more interestingly, he was very interested in how the people that had murdered him got away with it. This friend's dad was Warren Free. He was 42-year-old, and he was viciously attacked outside of his home when he was trying to protect it from a group of teenagers. An 18-year-old, 2 15-year-old boys, a 17-year-old, and 2 15-year-old girls were not found guilty of manslaughter in a trial in 2015. This friend said, Lucas was on my side with my dad's murder, but sort of wanted to know a bit more about what happened and how they got away with it, really. I guess they were thinking about how they could get away with a murder because the people who killed my dad did. Now imagine you've got a 13, 14-year-old daughter, and you know that she's really fancying a boy that's always getting in trouble with violence and he's had a rough upbringing and stuff. You're not really going to want them to be together too much, especially in a relationship. And Elizabeth had this stance. She was really concerned. And as she saw Kim's affection slowly turn into full-fledged obsession, she was even more concerned. She was concerned that the relationship was harmful. The connection between them was harmful. And she was also concerned that she was way too young to have sex. And she were, by law, if nothing else. She was too young. But they was already in a sexual relationship. So Elizabeth, doing what she thought was best as Kim's parent, she told Kim she weren't allowed to see him anymore, they weren't allowed to be together, and he certainly weren't allowed around their house. It's also said that Elizabeth was quite scared of him. And obviously this boy's only 13, 14 at this time, so he is quite a troublesome boy. And Elizabeth even went to the extent of phoning the school and asking to keep them separated. Now, obviously, when you're a teenager and you're in love, it is everything. They call it puppy love for a reason. Puppy is child, it's baby. And so if you can only imagine that much love, that much infatuation, and then being told you're not allowed to see each other, this obviously broke their hearts. So as a result of not being able to see each other as much as they wanted to, in October 2015, they ran away from home. They took a tent, a backpack full of clothes, and some food. And then after school, they rode off on the bikes. And as you can imagine, Elizabeth at this time has been described as frantic. It took authorities 6 days to track him down, and they were found quite a few miles away in a nearby town's forest. Obviously, they were camping out. Obviously, the police brought Kim and Lucas home, and they tried to get back into a normal life routine. But as you can tell, at this point, things are just getting further and further broken. The relationships are getting more and more cracked. There doesn't seem... Elizabeth's done things like go to family counselling, and she's trying to get Kim help, but it just seems that, especially with this new relationship, the family's just been torn apart more and more. And it's also known that Kim and Lucas and another girl were quite obsessed with suicide. They talked about it quite a lot. Then in March 2016... Kim attempted suicide by overdosing on painkillers, and it was Lucas that sought help for her. According to an assessment by Lincoln County Council, Kim required professional assistance sooner rather than later. She later posted a picture of herself to Facebook, and her mum commented, "Where's your lovely smile gone?" To which Kim replied, "It's disappeared." And again, I'm not going to describe the entire post. Sorry if you're on podcast, but it does seem here that Elizabeth again is trying to cheer her up a bit. She's trying to be a bit light-hearted. And again, behind closed doors, and we saw with the Melissa Turner girl, the cam girl that murdered her boyfriend, Facebook doesn't paint a real picture. But from all the things we've already heard, it does seem like Elizabeth's trying. But Kim's already convinced herself that she's not wanted that much, and she's pulling herself away and she can't see that everyone's trying. And this new found love relationship, and teenagers do that. It's quite a fact that when a teenager gets its first love, they don't really want to be around other people. They just want to surround themselves with that person that they're in love with. So maybe that's a part of what's happening here as well. Speaking of Facebook, this is where the story starts to really become a case, because Elizabeth had seen that Kim had been talking to her dad on Facebook. Now, if you remember, the dad were abusive and he was a drug addict, so they had to escape, and that must have been a very hard time for Elizabeth. So this caused a massive argument and a massive explosion of anger and emotion in the house, and it led to Elizabeth saying to Kim, "You're going to end up just like your dad." A truly upset Kim fled to Lucas's house, and when she got there, they barricaded themselves in Lucas's room. However, a part of this story you won't hear in the mainstream media, or at least I didn't see it, is they did leave Lucas's house. They climbed out of his bedroom window, went back to Kim's house, and collected the contraceptives, and then went back to Lucas's house. Upon arriving at Lucas's house, his family rugby tackled him, quite literally. They rugby tackled him, held him down, and that way they got Kim away, and they took her back home. And when she got back home, she'd found that her mum had bagged up all the stuff, and I don't understand what the plan were here. She's only 14-year-old, so I don't know if they were kicking her out or what, but they bagged up all the stuff, and apparently she'd even give some of the stuff to Katie. Meanwhile, the same thing happened at Lucas's house. All his stuff was being bagged up. On Monday, the 11th of April 2016, on the back garden of Kim's house, Lucas and Kim, both 14-year-old, sat and planned how to kill Kim's mom and Kim's younger sister. And by the way, it said the only reason they wanted to kill Katie, the younger sister, 13-year-old, was because they didn't want her to report them to the police. Which, to be fair, doesn't quite make much sense. The more I look at this story, you'll see what I mean. It doesn't make sense that they wanted to kill her to stop her from phoning the police. The plan was that Lucas would come round to the house during the night, knock on Kim's bedroom window 3 times. She would then go to the bathroom, open the window and let him in. He would bring a selection of knives and some clothes for him to change into after. Then he'd kill Kim's mom and Kim would kill her sister. The plans were very detailed. I mean, even to the extent that it was there and then that they planned to stab him through the voice box so that they couldn't scream. Later that night, Lucas stole a load of kitchen knives from his auntie's house, put them in a bag, did the 30-minute walk to Kim's house, walked up the alleyway, climbed over the fence, then he climbed onto the extension. They had a single-story extension. He climbed onto that roof and knocked 3 times on Kim's window. But there was no response. It turned out Kim had fallen asleep, so Lucas went home. Then after school that day, they met up, because at this point Lucas is expelled. He doesn't even go to that school anymore, so they can't discuss it during school. So he meets her after school. She says, "I'm sorry, I fell asleep." He says, "It's alright. Do you still want to do it?" She says, "Yeah." So they set the plan again for that night, the Tuesday night. Again, Lucas gets up, he gets all the knives back in his bag that he'd carefully placed back the night before, gets them back in his bag, sets off on his 30-minute walk, gets there, walks up the alleyway, jumps over a fence, climbs onto the extension roof, knocks 3 times on Kim's window. Again, Kim has fallen asleep. No answer. Lucas goes back home, puts the knives back where they were, gets in bed. The following morning, on Wednesday the 13th of April 2016, Kim's mom, Elizabeth, began a day as usual. In the afternoon, she went to St. Paul's School, where she worked as dinner lady, and then she came home. Unbeknown to her, Kim and Lucas had met up after school once again to confirm that they both wanted to do it and reset the plan for that night. Again, Elizabeth, Kim's mom, had had a pretty typical day and night, and the night ended quite typically. She went to bed in her room, and Katie and Kim went to bed in their room. They did share a bedroom. So Lucas, then again, ready and waiting to go, came downstairs, put the bunch of knives into his bag, did the 30-minute walk, got to Kim's house, went up the alleyway, jumped over a fence, climbed onto the extension, 3 taps on the window. It was this night that Kim remained awake. She heard the taps, she went through to the bathroom window, opened the window. Lucas put the bag onto the windowsill, Kim removed it, He climbs in. Once Lucas has quietly sneaked into the house, they open the bag. Inside the bag was 4 kitchen knives that had been wrapped in Lucas's spare clothing. Kim picks up one of the knives. She's now trying to decide which knife she's going to use to kill her younger sister. Lucas turns to her and he says, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And Kim responds, "Yeah, but I don't want to kill my sister." So subsequently, they agree that Lucas will kill both of them. And while that's happening, Kim's going to hide in the bathroom. Lucas Markham then went into Elizabeth Edwards' bedroom. He was carrying the biggest knife, and he stabbed her in the throat. Part of that time, he was pinning her down, kneeling down as he tried her. Meanwhile, Kim's in the bathroom, and she can hear the sounds of her mom struggling and gurgling. So she went in to her mom's bedroom, and she could see Lucas with a pillow over her mom's head. There were blood splatters on the wall, there were blood all over the bed, all over the floor. Lucas checked for a pulse, and he confirmed that her mom was dead. A bit that I'm not fully sure if it's true or not, but it said that when Kim went into her mum's bedroom to see how things were getting on, she accidentally held her mum's hand as she was dying. She thought it was Lucas's hand, and when she realised it weren't, she then sat on the floor rocking back and forth, mumbling, "It will all be over soon." She later told investigators that she heard Elizabeth gurgling, and she saw her legs kick out. After Elizabeth's death had been confirmed, Kim went back into the bathroom, while Lucas went into Katie's bedroom. He suffocated her with a pillow and stabbed her twice in the neck. Kim later referenced this by saying, "I didn't want to be there because I despise my mother, but I didn't mind my sister, so I didn't want to be in the room." Before Lucas reappeared with blood on his hands, jumper, neck and face, she heard her sister shouting "get off" in a very croaky voice. Still following the plan, Kim ran them both a bath. The reason for this being is Kim didn't like the smell of blood. They then bathed together for 20 minutes. She then changed into her minion pyjamas. She dragged a blanket over Katie's face because she didn't like the sight or the smell of blood. And then she dragged her own mattress downstairs into the living room. Lucas and Kim then had sex, watched Twilight, and munched out on tea cakes and ice cream for the next 36 hours. The following day, Kim and Lucas had been reported missing by Lucas's auntie and the school. Lucas's auntie directed the police straight to Kim's house. She said that, "I don't know where he is, but he'll definitely be with Kim." Lucas and Kim actually had a suicide pact. They decided that they'd kill themselves on the day after the murders at 2 p.m. They was going to overdose on alcohol and tablets. Kim had even wrote a note that read, "I want Lucas's and my ashes scattered in our special place. From Lucas and Kim. We don't give a fuck anymore." During that day, Lucas's auntie went to Kim's house twice, and the police did so once. They were at the times 10 minutes past 5 p.m, 9 p.m, and 9:45 p.m. However, nobody answered the door. But it wasn't because they'd stuck with a plan. In fact, they'd changed their minds, and they were just ignoring them. And the reason for changing their minds? Kim decided she didn't like the smell of alcohol. The day after, on the morning of Friday the 15th of April, 2016, the police officer returned back to the house, and again there was no response. However, this time he did hear a dog barking. He subsequently made inquiries at Elizabeth's place of work, the school that Kim went to, and all of which said that they hadn't heard from the family since the 13th of April. So later that day at noon, the police returned to the house and broke in through the living room window. When they got into the house, Kim and Lucas were still laid on the mattress in the living room. The police asked Kim where her mum were, and she very calmly said upstairs. So they then said, "Well, what's happened?" So then Lucas very calmly said, "Why don't you go and have a look?" When the police discovered these bodies that had been there for over 36 hours, the smell was completely overpowering, and there was blood everywhere. Both Kim and Lucas was arrested on suspicion of murder. After cautioned, Kim didn't respond, but she did later point at some medication that they'd laid out and said, "We were going to take them." When Lucas was cautioned, he responded, "Fuck life." Both of the bodies, Elizabeth's and Katie's, were examined by pathologists, and here's what they said. Elizabeth's body had 8 sharp force injuries, 5 of which were on her hands, which obviously suggests she was trying to defend herself or get Lucas off. The remaining sharp force injuries were stab wounds, one to the right shoulder and the other 2 to the neck. The stab wounds to the neck resulted in injuries to her internal jugular veins, and one almost completely severed a windpipe. The cause of death was stab wounds to the neck. However, the injuries would not have been instantly fatal. This means that Elizabeth did survive for a short time after, and the wounds had not passed through bone tissue, so the pathologist said that the force being used was mild to moderate. To the body of 13-year-old Katie, there was 2 stab wounds to the neck. One entered from the left side, resulting in a small defect within the right vertical artery which caused moderate amount of bleeding, but not enough bleeding to have compromised the blood flow, causing a cause of death on its own. But a body was found with a pillow on its face. Subsequent examinations to her lungs concluded that she had died due to a hemorrhage from a stab wound to the neck and smothering. Because there was an injury to one of the vertebrae, that did suggest severe force. In Kim's first police interview, she made a full admission of guilt and gave them every detail in a step-by-step account, all the way from right at the very beginning. She stated that she didn't have the mental strength to go through with killing Katie, and she said she was able to hear noises, so she left the bathroom, she went into the bedroom, where she saw Lucas astride her mother with a pillow over her face. She said it had been about 10 minutes before her mum was dead, when Lucas checked her pulse and confirmed she were indeed dead. In a second interview is when she confirmed the reason she didn't take the overdose is because she didn't like the smell of alcohol. In Lucas's first 2 interviews, he made absolutely no comment. Then he produced a prepared statement, in which he admitted full guilt of killing both victims, and he also gave them a step-by-step account of what happened. He described killing Elizabeth Edwards, saying that during the attack she had struggled and scratched his face, back and bum. It was 3 minutes that she stopped struggling and went limp. He got off the bed, he took off his trainers, and that was to stop the floorboards creaking as he walked across them, and he picked up a knife. And it was at this point that Kim walked into the room. She asked if it was done, he said yes. She asked if he'd struggled, she said yes. And after that, she went back into the bedroom. He claims he then went on to the sister's room. She was laying on her back with her head facing away, so he bent down and pushed the knife through her throat. He then picked up a pillow and pushed it over her face. He said that Katie didn't struggle, but her arms were twitching. He was asked if he was happy that Katie and Elizabeth were dead, and he said, yeah, no. He did also go on to say he didn't enjoy anything about murdering them, but him and Kim wanted to murder him, and he understood everything that he'd done. Now, obviously, the statements do match up almost perfectly. There's 2 details that don't quite match up. The first one is when Kim entered the room. Obviously, she might have seen more than he thought she saw. He might not have known exactly when she entered the room. So, I suppose that's an explanation for that. And the other one is how long it took to kill Elizabeth. And he says it took 3 minutes. She says it took 10 minutes. Now, you've got to look at that on the perspective of them in that moment. He'll have had a lot of adrenaline, so the time will have seemed to go by a lot quicker. And she'll be stood in the bathroom, really nervous and really scared, so time will have gone a lot slower. So we can say it was between 3 and 10 minutes. However, both of them were pretty much devoid of any guilt. They didn't show any remorse or emotion whatsoever during the police interviews. Kim said, we made sure we were both definitely okay with it, and he constantly asked me if I still wanted to go through with it, and I said yes. She also said I was okay with it because it wasn't torture or anything. The fact that it happened so swiftly provided me with peace of mind. It didn't bother either of us. My mum doesn't have to deal with me being suicidal, and she doesn't have to wake up worrying every morning and see if I'm still alive. And my sister doesn't have to go through all the heartbreak and emotions and stuff. On the 16th of September 2016, both of them admitted guilty to manslaughter by diminished responsibility, but pled not guilty to murder. Now, for anyone that don't know the difference, manslaughter is basically when you intend to hurt somebody, no matter how severe you intend to hurt them, but they died and you didn't want them to die, you were just trying to hurt them, or trying to humiliate them. It's basically accidental death, which we can tell is obviously a lie. They planned to murder him, so I don't understand how they thought they were going to get away with that, especially when they've admitted in the police interviews that they wanted to murder him. On Monday the 10th of October, Lucas pled guilty to murder. He was remanded in custody and awaiting sentencing at the end of Kim's trial. Prosecutor Peter Joyce QC told Nottingham Crown Court that Kim accepts that although it was Lucas that did the stabbings, she's equally responsible for the deaths. She planned them, and she helped to put the plan into action. She gets and accepts that she's as much of a part of it as him. He told jurors the only issue in the case was whether Kim had a defence of diminished responsibility. I should mention here, police evaluations didn't find either of Kim or Lucas to have a mental illness, but he did show signs of personality disorder on Kim, but that couldn't be properly diagnosed until she's 18. And at this time, she's only October, so now she's turned 15. It's past her birthday. She were 14, she's now 15. Kim never pled guilty for murder. An counter plea of manslaughter was rejected, so she was tried for murder. And it only took the jurors 2.5 hours to return a guilty verdict. A unanimous guilty verdict. On the 10th of November 2016, the High Court judge gave them both a life sentence with a minimum of 20 years. However, on the 9th of June 2017, the Court of Appeal reduced the sentence to 17.5 years. It was also at this time that it was determined and ruled that their names could be named publicly. There you go, that's the end of the case. You know, I'm torn. A lot of people just blame Kim. And I don't think you can just blame Kim. It's that typical thing, innit, of he was led astray. At the same point, people that are involved and close to the case, judges and stuff, have called it a toxic relationship. And I think that is the only way to describe it. And I think that summarises it. Because that is what it were. I don't think Kim's totally to blame. Let's face it, she backed out. And yeah, he could have been so in love, but this is a violent person as well. At 14-year-old, he was capable of murder of 2 people. So we can't just say, oh, well, it were in puppy love. And well, I'm sorry, I don't think that's a good enough reason, you know. With somebody that we're having such trouble with his anger and his violence, you can't say that without meeting Kim, this would have never happened. It might have just happened later for a different reason. But yes, Kim is also guilty. Although she didn't kill anybody, she planned it. She let him into the house. She stood there and waited. She could have called it off at any point. There were 3 days that he turned up and she was asleep. Which, to be fair, if I'd turned up to pick you up to take you out somewhere 3 times and you didn't arrive, the next day I did it again, I wouldn't be coming back for a 3rd day. So he was definitely committed. It's just wrong. It's just terrible. And my love goes out to... Elizabeth did have another daughter, who luckily for her lived in Derby at the time. And apparently Elizabeth were in a really serious relationship and they were thinking about getting married and everything. So my heart goes out to them. It's an absolutely terrible and awful case, and it's just intriguing. I have now got 2 clips. I think the one from Lucas is quite short, and then the one from Kim is about 10 minutes long, 8 minutes long. So I'm going to put them on. If at any point them clips aren't on, it's because they've been copyrighted or whatever else, so then I might have had to remove them. But if they are there, they're there. They'll certainly be there when I first upload it. Thank you for watching, guys. Please do subscribe, please thumbs up, and please do share it. Bye.
Basically, me and Kim, like, she knows I hate her mum, and I said I wish I could kill her, and she said yeah, and she thought I was joking, but I was being serious, then she realised I was being serious, so she started being serious.
But you've said there in one line, during conversations recently, we mutually suggested killing her. That's quite a statement to make in one line. So tell me more about the conversations that you and Kim have had.
Basically, me and Kim, like, she knows I hate her mum, and I said I wish I could kill her, and she said yeah, and she thought I was joking, but I was being serious, then she realised I was being serious, so she started being serious.
And what happens this time?
She looks out the window, sees me there, she waves, I put my thumbs up, and then she goes to the bathroom window.
Okay, and what happens then?
She opens the bathroom window, I pass my bag through, I get through, and then she opens my bag, and I take a knife out, and I pass her a knife. I don't even know why I did that, just to make sure. And she holded the knife but never used the knife. The knife is still in the bathroom with the other knives. And then I went into her mum's room, stabbed her in the neck where she was asleep on her side, and smothered her face with a pillow. I went into Katie's room, which is the same room as Kim's, and I thought I stabbed her, but I'm not 100% sure if it was like her or the mattress. And then I smothered her face with a pillow too.
Or was the plan to kill Elizabeth and Katie?
Yeah. Well, it was the plan since Wednesday.
Since Wednesday?
Yeah, plan for me to kill both of them.
Right, okay. But the plan was between the two of you,
Yeah.
that Elizabeth and Katie
Yeah.
will be killed.
Yeah.
And then on Wednesday, the plan
Yeah.
was that you would do both.
Yeah.
Okay. You've said that in this statement you say that Kim had become increasingly hating of her mother.
Yeah.
And that you mutually agreed to kill her.
Yeah.
Why? What was the reason for killing Katie?
Because she had called the police.
Okay. Is that the only reason?
Pretty much.
She was laying on her side, and I don't know really how he stabbed her, but he stabbed her through the neck, I think, through that way, because she was on the side.
Okay.
I went into the room to see what was going on, because I heard noises and stuff, so I just wanted to check if he was okay. He was on top of her, with a pillow over her head, even though her voice box and that was I thought I heard her say "get off me," but I'm not entirely sure. Then after about 10 minutes of Lucas putting his weight on her, she was dead.
What exactly happened to cause you to want to plan this?
It's just kind of happened, I guess.
Because it's quite a drastic thing to happen. You clearly, from what you're saying, had your reasons. I mean, what were those reasons?
Just that, ever since, I was young, I've never got on with my mum. I knew that she favoured my sister more than me. And even though she said that she didn't, I knew that she was lying.
And how did you feel?
I was okay with it. Just the fact that it happened so quickly, that gave me peace of mind, because it wasn't torture or anything. So.
And how do you feel about it on reflection now?
The same way.
What, relieved that it's done?
Yeah.
Feel happy about it?
To a point, yes.
What's that?
Yes, because my mum doesn't have to deal with me anymore. Being suicidal, and she doesn't have to wake up worrying every morning to see if I'm still alive. my sister doesn't have to go through all the heartbreak and all the emotions and stuff.
Where did you think up to kill your family, to do it via a knife, to stab them in the throat, to have a bath afterwards, to commit suicide afterwards? Where's all this come from? Where's all this? Have you seen something like it? Have you read something like it?
No, not really. It just went with general knowledge, really. Because the voice box, stabbing in the throat, the bath, because of the dog, so she wouldn't smell the blood and just because I don't like the smell of blood. And committing suicide after. It's just most people who do commit murders try to commit suicide themselves. Just most.
That's right, this is what I yeah. But so that's your idea behind it. Right, so there was nothing that you'd seen, you'd read, or anything that gave you this sort of notion. Nobody discussed it with you. All your own doing, just you and Lucas.
I'm sure you realise at this stage just how serious this is, don't you? You're a very young girl. But this is very, very serious for you and Lucas. So if there's anything you need to tell us, you might as well get it off your chest now. I appreciate the fact that you told us what you told us. And I don't know if you've got anything lurking that you've not said. You might want to get cleared.